He looked me straight in the eye across that HR table and said, "You'll regret this, Eudora." I didn't blink. I'd already filed every truth he tried to bury. The system spoke louder than my anger ever could. And trust me, this story's just warming up. The drizzle had turned the magnolia leaves into little mirrors, each one catching the yellow porch light as I walked up the steps. My hands were full. A still warm pecan pie balanced against my hip and a grocery bag looped around my wrist with sweet tea cookies inside. Baton Rouge winters never knew how to commit. Humid air clung to my coat while Christmas lights blinked like they were tired of pretending. At 69, I don't show up uninvited. My mama drilled that into me. But my daughter, Talia, texted earlier this week, "Mom, 6 sharp. We want you here." So here I was, right on time, heart steady, shoes damp, trying not to slip on those shiny leaves. I pressed the Ring doorbell. It didn't chime, just a faint blink of the blue light. Behind the frosted glass, a shadow shifted. A gumbo scent drifted from somewhere down the street, mixing with the faint sweetness of my pie. I told myself, this is family. We can do civilized. My reflection in the window looked back. A composed woman who still believed manners could fix most things. Then the door cracked open. Colson Merritt, my son-in-law, filled the space. His sweater looked pressed enough to squeak, his breath laced with bourbon, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Evening. Eudora," he said, using my name like a burden. "We're kind of packed tonight." "I have Talia's invite," I replied, keeping my tone even. He didn't move. I saw the dining room behind him, a long table glowing with candles. 8 plates. My name tag missing. He shifted his stance just enough to block the doorway. "There's no room," he whispered. "It's Christmas Eve," I said softly, holding up the pie. "I brought dessert." He shrugged, eyes flicking over my shoulder like he was hoping the conversation would disappear. "Appreciate it," he muttered, then leaned forward and eased the storm door closer to my hands. The metal brushed my knuckles. I steadied the pie, breathed slow, and didn't step back. Colson hesitated, then sighed like a man doing charity. He disappeared for a second and came back holding a flimsy plastic plate. He scooped bits of dark meat, a heel of a roll, and cold gravy onto it. "You can eat right there if you're hungry. Like a dog." He set it down near the mat that read, "Blessed Home." The air thickened. I didn't blink, just stared at that plate shining under the porch light. My reflection bent in the brass handle beside it, distorted, older, smaller. I swallowed the heat rising in my chest. My late husband's words floated up. "Never beg for a seat at a table you built," so I didn't. I kept my back straight. My voice came calm as rain. "Listen, baby, I'm not here to make a fuss. I'm here because I was asked." He crossed his arms, jaw tight. From inside, laughter bubbled, a practiced, hostess kind of laugh. Talia's, it sliced clean through the air between us. "Don't do this to yourself," I said quietly, eyes steady on his. He flinched. His thumb rubbed his wedding ring, a tell I'd seen before. Control masquerading as confidence. I set the pie on the porch table, not the ground, my purse upright beside it. Proof of who I am, tidy, deliberate. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. The Ring camera glowed green, recording every second. "You know," I said, voice low, "hospitality tells on a man quicker than any resume." He didn't answer. His face twisted. Pride fighting decency. I gave a small laugh, soft and sharp all at once. "Dogs are loyal, sweetheart." The words landed, his jaw ticked again, eyes darting toward the door camera. I looked straight at that little glowing lens, drizzle streaking my glasses. My voice clear as Sunday morning. "Let's record the truth." The porch light flickered, catching the pie's steam, the plastic plate gleaming on wet concrete. I stood there, chin lifted, every muscle quiet but ready. If he wanted me on the ground, he'd have to bury me. And I wasn't done living. The drizzle hadn't stopped. It hung in the air like something waiting for a decision. I stood on that same porch, back straight, hands steady, the pie untouched on the table beside me. My purse sat upright, just like I left it. I didn't beg, didn't knock again. At my age, I don't argue on porches. I document. The Ring camera caught every breath, every blink. Magnolia leaves glistened around that blessed home mat, framing the plastic plate like a cheap joke. Coulson shifted his stance, trying to look bigger than he was. I kept my chin level, spine tall. You might want to check your posture. Coulson, I said lightly. The camera loves symmetry. He leaned in. Bourbon, mint, false charm. I counted my heartbeats to slow my voice. I don't raise my voice in front of neighbors, I murmured. I raise proof. The Ring blinked. That was enough. Then it came. The laugh. Small, sharp, unbothered. Dogs are loyal, sweetheart. Well, it wasn't loud, but it carved the air clean. He flinched. I saw it, the twitch in his jaw, the panic behind the performance. His lips parted, but no words came. You hear me plain? I asked softly, because I'm not repeating myself. From inside, a fork clinked against glass. A silence rippled through the house like someone hit mute. Coulson smirked weakly. No need to be dramatic. I'm being documented. Not dramatic, I said. The ring light pulsed again, red and alive. I slipped my phone from my coat pocket. Battery at 59. Brightness up. My thumb opened the folder marked Tuesday Rooms, a little collection. Hotel lobby, elevator mirror, 2 faces framed in gold light. I used to run payroll. Dates, receipts, signatures. They're second nature. I'd labeled each photo by week number. Order makes truth easier to find. Coulson's eyes followed the glow of the screen. He couldn't help himself. I zoomed in. Hotel logo, wristwatch face, both clear as church glass. I didn't raise my hand, just tilted it enough for him to see what he already feared. You don't want to touch this, Coulson, I said calmly. You don't want to add fingerprints to the record. His voice dropped to a whisper. You don't know what you think you know. I smiled. Honey, I only use what I can prove. Through the crack of the door, I heard the room shift. Chairs scrape. A murmur from one of the guests. Talia's voice floated thin, rehearsed. Everything's fine. But it wasn't. It never is when someone says that. The stereo inside played Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. From now on, our troubles will be miles away. I almost laughed again at the irony. I stepped an inch closer to the threshold. You're not keeping me off my child with scraps on a floor, I said, tone firm but even. That's not hospitality. That's cruelty. He crossed his arms, voice brittle. Let's not escalate. You escalated when you put that plate down. I bent slightly, nudged the plate aside with the toe of my shoe. No kicking, just reclaiming ground. Then I raised my phone again, snapped a picture. Wide shot, tight shot, timestamp, visible. Baton Rouge, Christmas Eve, I muttered, saving it. I highlighted Talia's invite message, timestamp and all. No need for drama when you've got data. Coulson's mouth opened, but the words never arrived. The ring camera blinked again, like it was breathing with us. I stared right into it. You told me to eat like a dog. Coulson, I said, slow and steady. Now the whole world can listen. He froze. His eyes darted toward that little blue light. The facade cracked. And for the first time, I saw fear instead of arrogance. You know, I said quietly, hospitality tells on a house. Inside, Silent Night began to play. The words drifted through the doorway. All is calm. All is bright. I looked at him one last time. I came with pie and respect, I said. I'll leave with my dignity intact. He didn't move. Couldn't. I tilted my phone so the camera could see the truth before anyone else did. The drizzle thickened, soft as breath against the glass, and my fingers left small smudges on the phone screen as I typed. The message was short, the kind that couldn't be twisted into something else. At your door, the subject read, then the attachments. One photo of that plastic plate lying beside their blessed home mat. Another of the invite she sent me. Timestamp clean. The last, me, standing tall on the porch. No anger, no kneeling. I added one line. Baby, I came with pie and respect. I won't eat off your porch. Step out 5 minutes. My thumb hesitated just long enough to check the Wi-Fi signal. 3 bars steady. The drizzle touched the screen, but I didn't wipe it. I pressed send. Inside. Her phone chimed, A clear, high sound that cut through chatter and silverware. A pause spread across the room like a held breath. Someone whispered, "Is that your mom?" The clinking of glasses stopped. I saw Coulson's back stiffen, his neck twitch. He didn't turn fully, just shifted like a man trying to keep control. "We can handle this like family, not like PR," I said quietly. More for the Ring camera than for him. That red LED blinked, a heartbeat of truth no one could silence. Through the narrow gap in the door, I caught a glimpse. Talia's face pale as linen, then flushing deep when she saw the photo. Shame traveled faster than sound. Her lips moved, maybe forming my name, maybe a prayer. A guest attempted a polite chuckle, but it fell flat. "Baby," I said softly, "I'm right here." My tone wasn't a plea. It was a reminder that mothers don't vanish just because someone shuts a door. Coulson inhaled and turned, trying to smooth things with that corporate calm he used like cologne. "We were just about to fix you a plate to go," he said, smile taut. I answered steady. "For the room and the camera. You put a plate on the ground and told me to eat like a dog." The word dog landed heavy, made him blink twice. "You don't have to love me, son. You just have to act right in your own doorway." The Christmas music inside stopped mid-lyric, like even the stereo didn't want to interrupt. I lifted my phone slightly. Not a threat, just a mirror. What I'm not doing is guessing. What I have is proof. On the screen. The hotel logo, the elevator mirror, the faces, everything clear, no blur, no doubt. He reached quick, but I pulled back before his fingers got close. No touching, no excuses. "I only use what I can prove," I repeated. Talia's eyes darted from him to the screen, then to me. Her lips trembled, apology forming and dying in the same second. "That's rough," someone muttered. No one laughed this time. Then it happened. Talia's hand on the knob. The click was soft but final. The door opened just wide enough to change everything. The dining room came into view, the golden table, the extra chairs, the absence of my name tag like a wound. Talia stood there, eyes glassy but clear, and for the first time, she didn't hide behind anyone's shadow. "Mom," she whispered. 2 letters of that word broke me and built me all at once. Coulson shifted beside her, tried to reclaim the space, but she stepped forward, making the door her boundary, not his. A woman across the table lowered her gaze, then raised it again, choosing where to stand without moving her feet. "I'm not here for a scene," I said calmly. "I'm here for a seat. You invited me." Coulson's jaw clenched. "We're at capacity," he muttered. "Not for the woman who raised the woman of this house." My voice carried just enough to reach the chandelier. One guest murmured, "Let her in." Another nodded. The room was turning. Slow, certain. Talia looked between us, her chin trembling but lifting higher each second. The heat in her cheeks wasn't embarrassment now. It was resolve. And then she said it. Clear. Calm. Unstoppable. "Mom comes in, Coulson steps out." The sentence rang through the room like a bell. A fork dropped. A breath caught. Coulson's expression hardened into the kind men wear when they've lost control. I didn't wait for his reply. I stepped 1 foot across the threshold, pie in hand, dignity intact, as the house held its breath to see whose name the table would remember. I stepped fully into the dining room, pie balanced steady in my hand. The air was thick with cinnamon, tension and polite silence. I placed the pie on the sideboard, not the main table. Respect, not request. "Evening. Y'all," I said, voice smooth as the silk runner beneath their plates. My eyes made a quiet sweep. Who held my gaze? Who dropped it? Which chair waited without a card? I set my coat across the empty seat, an act small but sovereign. "Water first," I murmured to Talia. Clarity before comfort. Coulson hovered near the head of the table, tapping his fingers on the wood like he was keeping time with control slipping away. I slid a linen napkin to that empty seat. No announcement, just action. "Who's carving?" I asked, using the rhythm of mothers everywhere who recenter chaos with chores. A guest cleared his throat. "We're, Between courses, I nodded. Then we're right on time for good manners. The words carried the calm of a sermon that had already been preached. Talia's shoulders loosened. She stood beside me now, not behind him. I kept my palms visible on the table, steady as church pews. Coulson lifted a to-go box like a peace offering. I smiled, slow and polite. That era had ended. "Your office near the downtown Marriott?" I asked the young man across the table, the one with the HOA newsletter badge still clipped to his blazer. His brows rose. Yes, ma'am." "Then you know their lobby poinsettias. Same every December." I turned my phone so the room saw the photo. Bright red blooms, the Marriott plaque behind them, timestamp glowing. "Details keep folks honest," I said simply. The silence after was deep enough to hear the hum of the fridge. A woman whispered, "That's the Marriott." The poinsettias had spoken. I didn't need to say more. Then my eyes caught the folded magnolia printed card tucked under the table runner. I lifted it just enough to see the heading, Merit Holiday Dinner. My name wasn't there. "Funny thing about lists," I said, setting it back down. "Who's missing says more than who's here." The line hung gentle but landed heavy. A guest shifted in her seat. "Talia, did you—" she began softly. Talia's head moved in a sharp no. Her eyes found Coulson, who stared at the list like it might burn. I didn't touch the card again. I didn't have to. A buzz cut through the moment. One guest glanced down at his phone. The screen flashed bright, even from across the table. I saw the header. Compliance memo, manager subordinate conduct. His thumb flew to hide it, but Coulson had already seen. Color drained from his face. "Sometimes HR arrives before dessert," I said mildly. Sliding my phone back into my purse, Talia's breath caught. A guest exhaled slow, like releasing years of office gossip. "We can finish like neighbors," I told the room. "Or keep pretending this is normal." Silence answered. And silence, tonight, was a kind of justice. I turned to Coulson, level and unwavering. "You put a plate on the floor for a 68-year-old woman. That's not culture, that's cruelty." His voice stumbled. "You've misunderstood." "We all heard you," I said. The camera did too. My tone never lifted, but his hands began to twitch like loose wiring. "Apologize properly, then step out. Cool off." He blinked hard, the word apologize foreign in his mouth. "Sir," I added, soft but firm, reminding him I was not his subordinate. Talia's hand landed on the chair beside me, sealing the line between truth and excuse. "Document, don't debate," I said, voice low but meant for anyone listening later. "Claim your seat. Let objects tell the story." I touched the napkin, the phone, the guest list. "You don't need perfect words to be respected," I added, eyes sweeping the table. "You just need steady ones." The pulse in my neck slowed. My breath came clean. I looked at Talia. "Daughter, will you seat your mother at your table?" She looked at the plate photo still open on her phone, then at me. Her chin rose. "Yes. Now—" Coulson's chair scraped backward hard enough to rattle the silverware. Every fork on that table trembled. I stayed seated while Talia stood just behind me, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. That one gesture said more than a dozen speeches. The guests sat stiff, glancing at their plates like the silverware might save them. "Can I get some water?" I asked. Talia poured it herself. Glass steady, no tremor. That simple act drew a line, authority reclaimed without a raised voice. Coulson drifted toward the kitchen island, jaw tight, phone already in hand. 8:05, Christmas Eve, I said aloud, more for memory than conversation. "We can still save this evening if folks tell the truth." Then his thumbs started moving fast. The air vibrated with deceit before the sound of a single chime. A guest's watch pinged. Her eyes darted to me. Wide, uncertain, I asked softly, "May I see what he sent?" She hesitated, then turned the screen. His words glowed cold. "Please remain calm. Eudora is confused and agitated. We're handling a sensitive elder moment." I looked up. "I am lucid, documented, and seated by invitation." I showed the invite text, time-stamped and clear. Then I hit play on my short self-voicemail. "Eudora Clayton, 8:07 p.m. Dining room, oriented times 4. Facts don't raise their voices? The smear cracked right down the middle. When they call you unstable, I said, steady for the ring and for anyone watching later. Bring time, place, and proof. My tone wasn't teacherly, just true. Invite, timestamp, witness, calm. The cadence rolled like church rhythm. That's your shield, one guest whispered. That's not okay. Eyes locked on Coulson. I glanced at Talia. Don't chase his story. Baby, anchor yours. The ring's red light blinked, capturing every word, the lie, the correction, the stillness after. Coulson's phone rang. The name Darla Quinn. Compliance flashed bright. He declined the call. It rang again. Put it on speaker, I said. No confusion that way? He refused. Talia answered instead. Darla's voice came through clear as gospel. We received materials indicating a manager-subordinate relationship and corporate card misuse. We'll need statements tonight. The room froze. Coulson's complexion went ashen. His career was suddenly sitting at the table with us. There's documentary proof of a pattern, I added calmly. No drama, just truth, delivered like a signature on a dotted line. He flailed for control. If she keeps this up, he snapped, I'll call the HOA. Get her insurance flagged. She's breaking condo policy. A man across the table cleared his throat. I'm Ezra, from the HOA board, he said. That's not how any of that works. The sentence dropped like a gavel. I met Coulson's eyes. Threatening a widow's policy on Christmas? That's a choice, Ezra added. And a recorded one. His glance toward the ring said it all. The guests shifted, alignment tilting quietly toward me. Talia's jaw tightened, anger now righteous instead of ashamed. I was invited, I reminded them all. And I will eat at a table, not the floor. To the room. You don't have to pick sides to respect a mother. I turned to Talia. Seat me, Carve. Then we'll discuss those hotel receipts. To Coulson. Take your HR call outside. He didn't move. Son, I said, voice low. Don't keep choosing smaller. The silence afterward was its own sermon. I texted myself a summary, habit from years of running records, and group sent the plate photo and invite to every guest. Equal information keeps people honest, I said. I nodded for someone to slice the pie, ritual reclaimed, dignity restored. My voice stayed even, calm as the loudest sound in a room like that. When truth's enough, I told them, you lower your volume, not your standards. Then, 3 sharp knocks at the door. Darla Quinn's voice carried from the porch. Mr. Merritt, Miss Merritt, per policy, I need 10 minutes. Coulson froze, eyes on the foyer. I folded my napkin across my lap and turned to Talia. Dinner or denial, I said, quiet but final. Pick one. Darla Quinn stepped through the doorway like order entering chaos. Her badge caught the light. 10 minutes. Voluntary statements, she said. I stayed seated. Talia moved beside me and sat down, too, her way of saying whose side she was finally on. Coulson folded his arms near the island, voice clipped. This is a family matter. Darla's tone stayed level. It's also a workplace one, I asked. Purpose and scope? She answered cleanly. Policy violations, misuse of funds, power imbalance. Ezra from the HOA stood near the TV, neutral as a courthouse bench. I nodded. We'll keep this factual and kind. I laid ground rules before anyone else could. No yelling, no interrupting, no talking over. Just timestamps and receipts. Talia exhaled, grounding herself. Coulson tried to spin it back. She ambushed our dinner. Darla's pen clicked. We'll separate conduct from family. I slid my phone across the table. Open to the dinner invite. Timestamp included. I looked at the guests. When the room shakes, tighten facts, not volume. Darla lifted her tablet. Phones went silent except the one streaming evidence. Ezra tapped the remote. The ring cam feed bloomed across the TV. There I was on the porch, holding my pie. And there was Coulson. Voice cold as the drizzle. Eat there, like a dog. Gasps filled the room. My recorded voice followed. Calm and steady. Dogs are loyal? Darla paused the frame. Timestamp matches the invitation. Logged, Coulson snapped. Out of context. I met his eyes. Context is the full playback. Talia stared at the image of herself hesitating behind the door, realization washing over her like cold rain. If they rewrite you as unstable, I said quietly, let the wall remember better. Darla adjusted her glasses. Miss Merritt, during these trips, who authorized shared lodging? Talia's voice cracked. He did. Darla swiped to an expense record. Jewelry, hotel, meals. Policy breach. Coulson jumped in. It was mentorship. Darla didn't blink. Mentorship doesn't involve private suites, I said softly. Patterns are kinder than accusations. They show themselves. Talia's hand trembled. I want counsel. Darla nodded. You're entitled. The guests shifted. This had outgrown dinner drama. I opened a folder and laid down the trust summary. Eudora Family Trust, I said. Down payment and 3 months mortgage paid by me. Clause requires civil access for family visits. Repeated humiliation voids discretionary support. Coulson barked. That's blackmail. I smiled, small and dry. No, baby. That's adulthood with paperwork. Ezra raised a brow. HOA recognizes contributors for guest rights. Administrative, not moral, I added. Payments pause. Effective now. The murmurs changed timbre, from gossip to respect. Talia looked stricken. She understood what I'd just frozen. This is why rules exist, one guest whispered. I stood, smoothing my skirt. None of us is disposable at a family table. Coulson lunged for the remote, but Ezra lifted it above his head. Calm as Sunday service. Sit down, he said evenly. Talia finally spoke to him. You did this, not her. Darla gathered her notes. We'll need written statements after the holiday. I looked at the room. We're done excusing cruelty as stress. The silence that followed was cleaner than forgiveness. I folded the folder closed. Meeting's over. I thanked Darla for professionalism, Ezra for fairness, the guests for manners. To Talia, I said, I'll expect you at my house at noon, with your truth. To Coulson, step outside, call your lawyer. You're not hosting me anymore. I picked up my pie dish. It felt lighter now. Reclaimed. Then my phone buzzed. A voicemail to text appeared from an unknown number. Another video file. The thumbnail froze Coulson at a different doorway. Same sneer, same words. Eat there like a dog. Darla glanced at the screen, then wrote the ID down. I looked around the room and said, almost gently, seems this wasn't the first time. I woke before the sun. The Baton Rouge sky a dull pewter sheen. The kettle hissed low on the stove as I stretched my knees and whispered to myself, don't rush the truth, let it pour. I made mental notes. 3 pillars from last night, ring cam evidence, HR inquiry, and the trust freeze. I texted Talia. Noon, my table, paper first, tears second. Her reply came quick. I'll be there. I packed a tidy tote, printouts, statement forms, sticky notes. Malik texted. Morning, Nana, you okay? I typed back. I'm steady. You will be too. My voice carried in the quiet kitchen. We're not rescuing Coulson, we're rescuing ourselves. At 8:05, Darla Quinn called. Her tone was formal yet kind. Coulson Merritt is on administrative leave pending inquiry. He'll surrender devices at 10:30. She walked me through evidence retention, chain of custody steps. I logged last night's voicemail link into a folder marked for record. I asked her to include Talia in the support protocol. Of course, she said, reading the no retaliation clause like scripture. When we hung up, I told myself, and whoever might be watching someday, policy isn't a hammer, it's a level. My phone buzzed again. Coulson's mass text. Witch hunt, will sue. I took a screenshot, muted the thread, and poured more coffee. By 9:15, the phone rang again. Patrice from the bank confirmed fraud protocols had triggered overnight. Mrs. Clayton, she said, the disputed charges are isolated. We're preparing an affidavit for Talia. Her voice was brisk, professional, with that mix of empathy and duty I respect. I asked her to make it readable for Malik, too. Teach them young, I said. Patrice chuckled softly. Yes, ma'am. I will. She reminded me no confrontation at the branch, no drama, just documents. I wrote in my planner. Paper builds walls that stand longer than tempers. When we hung up, I slipped Patrice's note into the growing Noon folder. Noon arrived. My dining room became a war room with tablecloths. Aria Kim, my attorney neighbor, sat ready with her pen. Talia came in with eyes red but posture steady. Ground rule, I said. When we record what happened, we don't relive it. She nodded and began to write. Dates, times, words, the plate, the door, the humiliation. Aria initialed each page. We attached ring stills, signed HR consents, and emailed everything to Darla. I watched the send bar complete like a small victory. Then we filled Patrice's form, itemized charges, hotel overlaps, gift receipts. Aria notarized on the porch with a traveling stamp kit. I handed Talia an envelope from Malik labeled Family Impact. Inside, his neat scrawl, I just want us to be safe. She pressed it to her chest, whispering, I needed that. At 1:30, we drove to the HOA office. Ezra was already there, paperwork in hand. He explained the advisory. Colson couldn't bar me as an invited guest until the inquiry closed. Talia signed, shoulders lowering as if she'd been holding 100 pounds of apology. Ezra recommended shared access logs, new guest pins, routine rotations. No more doormat power, he said. I told him. When folks weaponize a welcome mat, change the rules, not your worth. Talia smiled, faint but real. First meal redo, she said. Your house this time? I nodded. Our table, our terms. At 2, Colson's Facebook post appeared. False accusations ruin families. The comments answered him faster than guilt ever could. 2 coworkers replied. HR handles facts. Then, a neighbor sent me a Halloween clip. Colson mocking an elderly man on the porch. I didn't gloat. I simply forwarded it to Darla labeled pattern evidence, no extra words. Pastor Brooks texted a scripture about endurance and sent a counseling contact for Talia. I thought of how grace isn't softness, it's structure. By late afternoon, gumbo simmered in my kitchen again. Talia chopped celery beside me. Phones face down at meals, I said. She nodded. And honesty face up. We laughed, quiet and clean. I handed her a check with her name on it. Tear this, I told her. We won't let money be the leash again. She tore it slow, smiling through tears. That felt good? Then the phone vibrated. Darla's voice held steady weight. Eudora, the older clip links to a prior HR case. There's another witness. Talia leaned on the counter, breathing deep. I'm not afraid of the whole story anymore. I looked out the window at the daylight coming back. When the truth builds a staircase, I said softly, you don't jump, you climb. By 8 o'clock that morning, the city was still quiet, dew resting heavy on the courthouse lawn. I wore flat shoes and a simple black coat. Dress like a signature, my mother used to say. Talia and Aria walked beside me, both steady but silent. Inside the HR conference room, the air smelled of stale coffee and tension. Darla Quinn opened the file like a pastor opening scripture. Timestamps, ring cam stills, work log overlaps, prior complaints from another office. This is not about emotion, she said. It's about procedure. Colson leaned back, arms crossed. It was a joke, he muttered. Darla didn't blink. The policy defines harassment as impact, not intent. I told the viewers in my mind. Policy is a ruler. Feelings don't bend it. Armand Ruiz cleared his throat, trying to distance himself. But the IT summary showed his name beside after-hours approvals. HR concluded with administrative separation. Badges, laptops, gone. Darla handed Talia a counseling card. Paperwork may not heal, but it gives you footing. By late morning, we were at the parish courthouse. The fluorescent lights hummed while a clerk stamped forms with the rhythm of authority. Aria spoke to the judge with practiced calm. I watched Talia find her voice again. I'm requesting a no-contact order, she said, and temporary possession of our home. The judge nodded, signing without spectacle. I whispered to Talia, the law's not fast, but it breathes. For my older viewers, I'd say this. Bring water, patience, and 2 pens. Bureaucracy rewards endurance more than speed. We walked out with 3 stamped copies and a little more air in our lungs. At noon, Patrice Naylor called from the bank. "Chargebacks approved," she said. 2 shadow accounts linked to Colson. I exhaled through my teeth. "You're telling me the man built tunnels under his own roof?" She chuckled. "In a manner of speaking." She explained the civil recovery process. No drama, just math and policy. Talia wrote mine in bold marker on her folder. I smiled at that. "Money," I told her, "isn't a weapon or a leash, it's weather. Manage it right, you don't drown." We chose a civil demand letter instead of criminal referral, for now. Consequences without chaos, my preferred recipe. By 2 o'clock, Ezra met us at the HOA office. His khaki shirt matched the paperwork. Orderly, practical. "Blocking a homeowner's guest violates Section 12, he said. "Fines accrue daily until correction." Colson's name was struck from the guest registry. "PIN access reset. Consider this the end of his gatekeeping," Ezra said. I nodded. "When someone weaponizes a welcome mat, roll it up and move on." He grinned. Baton Rouge civility at its finest. By late afternoon, I sent Darla the affidavit I'd prepared weeks earlier, just in case. It was a simple 2-page pattern report, notarized and dated. 20 minutes later, she confirmed receipt and said the company's ethics office had already pinged Armand Ruiz for review. I didn't name him in the affidavit. I just mapped behaviors. The system filled in the rest. Armand tried to leave the building with his laptop. Security stopped him gently. I told myself, a good plan doesn't need volume. It just needs air and timing. The air was daylight. The timing was now. At 6, we met at the small church hall. Pastor Brooks drew invisible lines on the floor. "No crosstalk. No deflection. Speak truth or stay quiet." Talia went first, short and clean. "I won't live under someone else's temper," Malik added. "I like when Nana's here." That was enough sermon for me. I laid out my printed list of house rules. Respect, sobriety, honesty. Arya slid an envelope across to Colson. "Civil demand, apology option enclosed." "Your choice," she said. He didn't open it. His silence was its own confession. He left before dismissal, and the room exhaled. Evening came with the smell of gumbo again. My kitchen light glowed like a small promise. Talia laughed softly over the stove, Malik setting bowls. Arya texted, "HR termination confirmed, ethics inquiry active." Patrice emailed, "Refunds processed, DA case optional." I called Ezra to thank him. "Ma'am," he said, "neighbors are just policy with porches." Malik grinned when I handed him a small fireproof pouch. "Peace of mind," I said. "That's grown up for important stuff bag." He giggled. Later that night, Darla called again. Armand's device showed expense approvals tied to personal gifts. Ethics took it up with outside counsel. My phone buzzed with a message from Colson. "You'll regret this." I hit archive. Protective orders work better than anger. Sitting at my desk, I updated the trust. Talia as co-trustee, Malik as contingent. My hand didn't shake. I closed the ledger, whispering to no one in particular. A woman my age doesn't chase apologies. I build exits and leave the door open for character if it ever shows up. The mail slot clinked just before dawn. A thick envelope slid onto my mat, return address. Ethics Division confidential. I stared, coffee in hand, pulse steady but curious. Was it justice or another test dressed in policy paper? Don't scroll away. Wait till you see what I found inside.